According to the Neon One email report, 48% of donors prefer to receive updates and appeals via email. If your nonprofit is not sending out emails as a part of your fundraising campaigns, chances are you are leaving money on the table. But maybe you're sending out fundraising emails already and you're not really getting great results. What should you do? How can you improve your emails? How can you start to send better emails? In this video, I'm going to share some proven tips for raising more money with email. Hi there, my name is Vanessa Chase Lakshan. I'm president of the Storytelling Nonprofit. I'm a fundraising consultant and an email fundraising copywriter, and I'm passionate about helping organizations figure out how to tell stories that connect with donors, build relationships, and ultimately raise money. Thank you so much for joining me here for today's video. I also create free tools to make fundraising easier for you, like the Email Fundraising Campaign Toolkit. This toolkit includes an email campaign planner to help you map out your fundraising campaign and case for giving, along with the email calendar and performance spreadsheet tracker. You can download your free toolkit over at thestorytellingnonprofit.com/toolkit. Writing and sending high-performing fundraising emails isn't rocket science. It's really a matter of knowing where the levers and mechanisms are to improve your results quickly and easily over time. Once you know where those are, you can start to figure out where your email is not performing well and falling short, and start to optimize your email for better performance. The basics of understanding how email works and where to improve it starts with understanding the funnel of fundraising emails. So to start, what is the funnel of fundraising emails? Well, if you think about like a marketing funnel or any sort of a journey that you bring people along in to get them to take a specific action, that's basically what we're talking about here in a funnel for the fundraising emails. If you follow the funnel, you can often identify where things went amiss and start to figure out how to fix your future emails. So here's what the funnel includes. The universe. This is essentially the targeting, the big group of people that you are sending the email to. They're the ones who've received this email. And sometimes this is based on query criteria or targeting criteria we may have. Other times, maybe you're sending to your full list. The second thing is the number of opens, or the open rate. This is the total number of email subscribers who have opened the email. The third point in our funnel is the number of click-throughs, and this is the total number of clicks on the URL links to your donation page within the email. And the final piece in the funnel is the donation page conversion rate. This data point represents the total number of people who actually took action. The way you calculate this is the total number of donations you received divided by the number of donation page visits multiplied by 100. Now, the idea here, as it is within all digital marketing, is we want to maximize the engagement at each point in the funnel so that we ultimately have the highest amount of donation page conversions and email conversions on a fundraising email that we're sending. So let's go step by step through each point in this funnel and talk about what can go wrong and how to fix it. Number one, the universe size and the email targeting. At the very top of our funnel are our subscribers that we're sending this email to. For many nonprofits, emails will go to their entire list with little to no targeting. And sometimes that's great. Sometimes that's the right call. Other times we might be sending an email to a targeted or niched group of subscribers on our email list. In either case, whether you have targeted the email heavily or you're sending full list, the thing you want to check is, did this email actually go to the right people? It happens, right? Human error is a part of our fundraising work, and we want to make sure that we actually sent this email to the right people. For instance, if you meant to send this email to 10,000 people and somehow it only went out to 3,000, you're probably going to figure out what the problem is pretty quickly. You just didn't send it to enough people. And so maybe you need to send to those 7,000 people who didn't get the email the first time around. Conversely, maybe you thought you targeted the email correctly based on some query criteria you developed, but actually those weren't the right people in the end. That's a good learning opportunity for us too. This is just a matter of figuring out, did we actually send to the right people? Now, once you've checked this and you've made sure your email has in fact gone to the right people and the approximate universe size that you were hoping to go to, we can go on to the next step, which is looking at the number of opens your email received. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that as of this recording, open rates are becoming less and less reliable these days, with things like Apple Privacy Opens auto-reporting email opens. So sometimes I take email opens as a bit of a grain of salt in the funnel where I'm looking at my metrics, but let's still talk about it anyways, because it is worth looking at since it is a point in our engagement funnel. The number of opens you receive, also known as the open rate, is a key point of engagement in the email funnel. The more people who open the email, the more clicks you can potentially get, and the more people you can send to your donation page. So this is often where organizations will start when they're looking at their email metrics. They'll think about how can we maximize the open rate? How did it compare to other emails that we've sent? So an obvious place to go to when we look at open rates is to think about the subject line. Subject lines are a really important part of email fundraising, no doubt about it. Your most recent subject line, did you get the kind of open rate you've seen in the past? You can kind of compare and contrast to past emails that you've sent. This is why it's a great idea to keep data over time so you can benchmark yourself. But we also want to look at, make sure it's in line with the list average and what we expect from our email list. If it's below that, maybe we didn't hit the mark with the subject line. If your open rate is lower than you normally see and you're looking for ways to improve this for future emails, here's a couple tips. Number one, you can consider A/B testing your subject lines to try to maximize the amount of opens you have to a good portion of your list. You can also look back on well-performing subject lines to see what's resonated well. I will tell you, I have reused subject lines in the past for clients when they've done really well. We don't use them super close together, but chances are people don't remember that they got this subject line from you before. If it was 5 or 6 months ago, I don't even remember what I got in my inbox last week. So if somebody sent me a duplicate subject line, chances are I'm probably not going to notice. But this is about getting leverage from things that have worked really well for our email list, and this is a great place to look. Another factor that can positively or negatively influence your open rates is the sender name. This is an often overlooked piece. A lot of organizations just have their default sender name, which might be the nonprofit's organization name. But I want you to think about who you actually open emails from. Most of us open emails from people, right? We like to open names we recognize or brands that we really know and trust. So one thing that you can consider if you haven't changed up your subject or your sender name in a while is think about, is there a person in your organization who could be a good sender name to try? You'll see a temporary bump in opens usually when you use different sender names. But it's a good idea, I think, as a practice to have, a list of like 2 to 4 sender names that you can kind of rotate through on your emails. Probably going to be your executive director, probably your development director, your organization's name, and maybe one other person that you might want to include in there as well to just keep things interesting and fresh in your inbox. Now, the last thing to consider here with open rates before we talk about click-throughs is we have to also think about email deliverability, which is the measure of how many emails you sent that actually landed in inboxes. If you have a high bounce rate, for instance, on an email that you sent, chances are maybe your emails have been flagged as spam and inbox service providers are not letting your emails get into people's inboxes. This can ultimately be a really bad thing for your nonprofit's email program. So be sure to keep an eye on abuse complaints and spam complaints in your emails, as it can really impact the overall performance of your fundraising. Number 3, the number of click-throughs you received on your email. The next point of engagement to consider in your email funnel is the number of clicks that you received, also known as the click-through rate. The click-through rate tells us a few important pieces of information about our email, including how compelling the call to action was for subscribers and whether or not that content resonated with subscribers. But there's also many other factors outside of that can influence whether or not somebody clicks on the email. As with the open rate, a good place to start with the click-through rate is benchmarking your past emails performance against the current emails performance. So if your click-through rate was lower, go back to the basics of a strong call to action. Was the call to action obvious enough in the email? Meaning, did you hyperlink more than the words donate now? I can't even tell you how many emails I see on my mobile phone where the words donate now are the only call to action. They're really tiny sometimes on a mobile device, and so it can be really hard for subscribers to actually catch that, click it, and make it over to your donation page. Hyperlinking an entire sentence, having a donate button are all things that can make this more obvious and more likely for people to click on the email. Was the call to action sentence or sentences direct, clear, and specific in the ask? Again, donate now is not a complete donation call to action, so we really want to look at, did we make it clear, specific, tangible, actionable, and urgent in getting people over to our donation page? And lastly, did you ask more than once? A lot of fundraising emails I see will do a one ask structure, which is fine. But sometimes if you want to maximize your chances, think about putting more than one ask in the email to, again, give people multiple things to click on, increasing your chances of the number of people who click on that email. In addition to looking at the call to action itself, we also have to consider the content of the email, as that does influence whether or not people click on an email. For instance, is there a compelling hook at the beginning of the email? Or is there a strong, coherent argument put forward for giving? Those are the kind of things that will impact whether or not people read the email and felt compelled to click on it. And lastly, and this part is frustrating for all of us, undoubtedly, we have to look outside of our email for some context sometimes around the performance. What else was going on in the world that could have impacted people's interest in your fundraising campaign? The best example I can give you here is a Giving Tuesday campaign I ran a couple of years ago that absolutely tanked for one of my clients. And it had nothing to do with anything that we did. In the geographic area that we were running this campaign, there was a catastrophic rainstorm that led to really intense local flooding for a week. As you might imagine, the magnitude of that kind of natural disaster eclipsed everything else that was going on at that moment. So for that particular Giving Tuesday, lots of people were giving to disaster relief aid organizations in the area. And that made sense. When we contextualized why we had a lower performance on the giving campaign, everything kind of fell into place from there. I know that that's often a frustrating reality of fundraising, but it's one that we can't overlook because not everything is in our control when we think about how a campaign did. And lastly, number 4, the point in our funnel, is the donation page conversion rate. Donation pages can make or break an email, in my experience. Even if you have a lot of people clicking on your email, a bad donation page or a bad donation page experience can get people dropping off and not actually making the donation. Since this can be a place where we lose a lot of people, it is important to think about what we can do to improve the donation page and really make it shine. One good data point here to think about is from the M&R Benchmarks report. Their most recent one reported that the average donation page conversion rate was 16% for nonprofits. I think that's a really good one if you're trying to benchmark yourself. In my experience, that range tends to be anywhere from 14 to 30% for our clients. And again, benchmarking yourself over time with your own data is one of the best things that you can do. If your donation page is the problem, here are a few reasons why that could be and things you can do to solve it. Number 1, the messaging on the donation page doesn't actually match the messaging in your email. When we think about kind of a coherent donor experience from one place to the next, we want the messaging to be as coherent as possible. So if you said something about saving the whales in your fundraising email and you send people to a donation page that says help the sea otters, people might be like, well, I was excited to donate to the whales, but like, what's going on here? So make sure there's that congruency, that unified experience across the places where people are touching in the campaign. Number 2, if there are navigation buttons at the top of your donation page, please, please, please remove them. The number one thing I've seen in the last couple of years improve donation page conversion rates is removing navigation bar buttons at the top of a donation page. Don't give people anywhere to go. They don't need to do anything else other than make a donation. So this will, I feel like, often improve donation page conversion rates significantly. So if you have navigation bars or a menu on your page, see if there's a way you can remove it. Number 3, the donation page loading time is slow and causing people to bounce off the page. This is a great thing to just check periodically, especially before you launch a campaign, is go through and do your own user test. How long did it take for the page to load? How long did it take for the transaction to process? If it's feeling slow, see if there's something you can do alongside your web developer to speed up your page loading time. And number 4, the donation page form is too long and could be turning people off. I know it is tempting to ask people every possible question on the donation form because you have their undivided attention. But realistically, we do not need every single piece of information about people and their lives on the donation form. That's part of what relationship building is for in fundraising. We can follow up with people. So think about, are there fields in your donation form that you can cut, that you can kind of prune back a little bit to make it faster and easier for people to donate to your organization? I'll say the gift of email fundraising, unlike other types of fundraising, is that we do have access to lots of user data and lots of behavioral data every time we send an email that can really help us pinpoint what's working and what's not. As fundraisers, as marketers, as communicators, one of the best things we can do is track this data over time and really start to benchmark ourselves and figure out where we're getting leverage and where we can really improve our fundraising emails. If you're looking for a great way to track your email fundraising data on an ongoing basis, be sure to download a copy of the Email Fundraising Campaign Toolkit and start using the Performance Tracker spreadsheet as a place to centralize your data collection so that you can start doing these kinds of improvements on your fundraising emails. If you have more questions about how to improve your fundraising email performance, leave them in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer them for you. Thank you so much for tuning into this video.